Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're about 1 minute away from getting started on today's webinar. While we wait, this would be a good time to take a moment to locate the question window, say hello, ask your first question. There's a QR code on your screen. Feel free to scan that or save the website address to do a survey when we're done. We'll get started here in just a minute. All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the 5 Pillars of Financial Health for Childcare Businesses, put on by ProCare Solutions today. My name is Leah Woodbury. I'm the head of content here at ProCare Solutions, and I just want to say welcome. Thank you for making time in your busy schedules to join us today. Before we get started, I just want to walk through a couple housekeeping items. Don't worry, we can't see or hear you. Video and sound is off for the whole presentation. If you have questions, we want to hear them. We're going to have time at the end, so enter them in the question box during the webinar. And if you are having technical difficulties, exit out of all the other software on your device. A lot of times that will fix it. And here's the thing that everyone cares about. We have $200 Amazon gift cards to give away today. One we will choose from whoever is here at the end of the webinar, and the other one will be for completing a survey at the end of the webinar. And before we get started, I do want to tell you a little bit about ProCare Solutions. So we are the leading expert in childcare management software. We've been doing this for more than 30 years. What we are proud of is the way we can support you as an all-in-one cloud-based platform to help you run your business. When you're looking at that screen, you're seeing a lot of different things. Financial management, I'm guessing if you're here for this webinar, that is something that you're interested in learning more about and looking at ways to improve or grow your success. But it's also more than that. It's e-documents, so you're getting rid of a lot of paper clutter. It's help with your it's doing your payment processing and your tuition collection, so you don't have to spend so much of your time on that. We always hear that nobody got into childcare because they loved accounting, so this is kind of part of it. So feel free, and we'll talk more about this at the end, but if you have other questions, we're happy to give you a demo to talk more about how we can help run all facets of your business. And today we're going to be talking with someone who knows all about this and who actually does have a background in accounting and in childcare. Kathy Ligon is the founder and CEO of HINGE Education Advisors. She was trained as an accountant, and she's been in education for more than 35 years. And during that time, obviously she's learned a lot and gained a lot of expertise. And today she's going to break down the 5 pillars to being successful in childcare into your business. So welcome, Kathy. We are always glad to have you and hear what you have to say today.
Thanks so much for having me, Leah. I'm the only one who entered the industry because of accounting and business background. Not actually the only one, but one of few. So thank you for having me. We love our partnership with ProCare and the work that you guys are doing to bring important information to business owners. So thank you for having me.
Yes.
So, hi. I'm very happy to be here. Looks like a fantastic crowd. And I know that you guys, like everyone else, are super interested in what in the world does this financial model look like. It has changed so much in the last couple of years, and what are we going to do about it? So I want to bring you today some information about how I help business owners think about their financial picture in their school. And I like to start with being sure we're on the same page theoretically. So when I say financial picture, a lot of people immediately hear at the expense of quality. And it's my 38th year, actually. So thank you for that, Leah. More than 35. It's 38, and I'm very proud of them all. But what I would like to say is that financial health and quality programming are not at odds with each other. They're absolutely necessary for each other. So sometimes we think about, if we talk about financial acumen and we talk about the strength of the financial side of your company, that it sounds like we mean at the expense of children or the expense of teachers. And that's completely not true. As a matter of fact, it's ridiculous. It's not only that you have to be financially thriving to care for the many, many team members, hundreds of children, hundreds of families, but you also have to care for yourself. And if you're not personally thriving, you cannot possibly do the mission you got in this business for. It's not sustaining. If you're awake in the middle of the night, you're worried about the payroll, you know you're not paying people what they deserve, you don't know where the mortgage is going to come from, you're scared to death about another COVID event where your attendance and revenue will plummet. If that's where you are, you will never be in good enough shape to do the work that you got in this industry to do. So I have to start there. I will also say that sometimes I get accused of being insensitive to the needs of parents. I was a parent with children in childcare. I now have children with children in childcare. And frankly, they have a lot of advocates. And if I hear one more news story about the seemingly ridiculous notion that childcare now costs more than a university education, I might just lose my mind. Because what I have to say about that is good. It ought to. Where should we invest our money? Is it our helpless 2-year-old who is in the proven most important time of their educational life? Or is it in a 20-year-old that's in a room with 50 other students and can perfectly take good care of themselves? So I consider myself to be the business owner's advocate because I'm not sure you have any or many. Also, I know that in 38 years, there are very few, if any, places to go to understand and get concrete information about how to run your business better. So that's what my mission is with you for this hour. We have a ton of resources on our website. I'll mention some as we go, and we would love to get connected and support you guys with the resources that you might need to run your business better and serve children better. This is my wonderful team. Part of it, we're 22 people across the country. What we do for a living is help people sell their businesses and sell their real estate. What we do for fun is what I'm doing right now. This is just makes my whole week to be able to stand here and relate to you guys and interact. Please ask questions. I would love that. I won't talk fast because I've got a lot of content. And we bring events to the industry. We have a one-day financial deep dive we call Thrive. We have a 3-day business financial conference. We have tons of webinar resources from our website at hingeadvisors.com. We're just happy to talk to people. We regularly support people with valuations of their business and real estate, which we don't charge for, and just in their business growth. So get connected to us. We would love to get to know you guys. So here's our Shift Conference. We rotate across the country. We're in November in beautiful Santa Barbara at the Ritz-Carlton this year. It will be really good. Registration set to open August 1st. Look for us there. Follow us on social media because you can scan our QR codes here this is the best way to get information about what we have available and what's coming up. Ask us a question, send us an email. So love to get connected to you guys there. Okay, so the first thing I like to talk about, well, before I do that, let me give you a very brief history of this 38 years. So what makes me qualified to talk to you guys about how to run your business better? So I was a very young accountant with a 4-year-old and a 6-week-old working in public accounting when I heard that the 5-site early education group where they went to school needed someone to do their financial work. And frankly, I loved my job, but I needed to get out of tax season. And so I got through a tax season with a 4-year-old and a 6-week-old, but then I went over to this childcare group expecting to be there about 10 minutes. That turned into 17 years, and we grew them from 5 to 120 schools in that time. What I had the opportunity to do was to go to a financial role, to an operations role, and to a growth role, which is where I just loved the industry. I got to interact with business owners. I figured out what they needed when they exited. I learned how to train our directors in a way that broke down the financial picture into key concepts that we still use, our 5 pillars of financial health, in a way that they could understand and implement. So the actions on the 5 pillars change, and boy, has a lot changed since COVID. But the pillars never change, and I hope you find that comforting. So in working with directors and business owners, 21 years ago, I founded Hinge, and we've just been so blessed with the work that we do in this amazing industry and the people that are in it. So all we do all week long is talk to people on the phone about what they're doing. We're talking to individual business owners in small schools, large schools, church-based schools, nonprofit, for-profit, specialty curriculums, play-based curriculums, groups with multiple schools, super regional groups, national groups, private equity held groups, publicly traded groups, international groups. So we have brought some international players into the US, and that's been a lot of fun. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm sharing with you what we hear is going on. I like to always start with, here's what we believe is happening globally in the industry, and then we'll go through the 5 pillars. So first of all, the industry has experienced a lot of change. So I want to talk about the state of the industry, then the 5 pillars, and then where growth opportunities are, because a lot of you I know are in growth mode, and where you can find growth opportunities will be last. So here's the quick summary, and then I'll break it down. Demand for our services is high. The operating model financially has never changed as much in my 38 years as it has since COVID. We'll talk about that. So that means the cost model is reinventing, and transactions for people to buy things are in huge demand. So what does all that mean? Demand is high because unemployment is low. In addition, parent confidence for center-based childcare has never been higher. And some slots were lost during COVID, unfortunately. Some people were not prepared. And that means that there are more children to fill slots. What does unemployment being low lead to? That leads to difficulties in staffing, obviously. So if you've been around as long as I have, we're in one market or the other. Either demand is high, people are working, we have difficulty hiring. I know how critical that is right now. It's always been hard. Let's just be honest. 38 years ago, people went to lunch on their first day and never came back. That's not new. It's been happening, but it's at a new level. The flip side to that is that unemployment's high, parents are not working, and we can get all the staff we need. Let me just say, as hard as this economic environment is, I much prefer this. We can build strategies around hiring, retention, retaining our teams, and those have changed, so we'll talk about them. I don't know how to send people to work if they're not working. So if you got to have one or the other, I give COVID credit for a couple of things, believe it or not. And as we go, I'll tell you about those things. But one thing is that unemployment is low. I don't know if COVID really did that for us, but we have big demand. Staff is such a challenge. And we have been hearing for the last year that salaries have risen 30% since COVID. Occasionally, a business owner will say to me 40 to 50%. We just saw the first study that confirms 30%. So in a cost model where 50% of what parents pay pays for staff salaries, how does that even work? What if your staff salaries went up 30%? What has to happen to your revenue stream? And I have a lot of people say to me, are you going to rework your metrics now for what we can spend on staff as a percent of revenue? No, I'm not. Because what that says to you as a business owner, just make less money now. Just make less money that you need to pay people more and invest in your company and care for yourself and create more childcare spaces. That is completely unacceptable. Other businesses don't do that. Your groceries are costing more right now. Why? Because they cost the grocer more. So we have to work with a model that covers the cost of care. Related costs for training, recruiting, career development also add to the expense load. And there are other expenses that have increased. You know, food is a good one. So while now there's a mismatch in a lot of companies between pricing, which really consists of tuition rates and discounts, and expenses increasing. So I'll give you some strategies around that. The national groups and international groups and smaller regional groups have very aggressive growth plans for 2024. So this is my last industry update for you. And I say this to you because they're going into new markets. And I don't want you to consider that to be a threat, but I do want you to be prepared for bright and shiny brand new construction. I want you to invest in your business. And when numbers are squeezed, that's counterintuitive. It's like, I got to pull everything back. I can't spend money. When exactly the opposite is true. This is the time to invest in your company, your people, your facility. More strategies on that. Huge buyer investor demand. So I give credit to COVID for this. So the investment world, who invests in companies, took notice of our industry during COVID. It was literally like, wait, what? What is this thing? What is this thing that's still open? What do you mean they're navigating this okay? They're allowing people to work. The incident rate of illness is not higher than the general public. What is this childcare thing? And so it took the notice of investors. Now, investors want to make money. They do. You guys read all the negativism about it. I hope you also want to make money. If you don't, talk to me, because I want you to make money. I want you to thrive, because that's how you do better work. But also, they want to do good work. They do. They want to invest. They could invest in anything, but they want to invest in things that do good work and create thriving. So that's the buyer base that we work with. All right, let's talk about the 5 pillars. So these are my 5 pillars of financial health, and they are occupancy, or how full your school is as compared to the licensed capacity, what your tuition rates are, what you're discounting, what you're spending on salaries, and what you're spending on your rent or your mortgage. And there are other things. You know, 5 things doesn't touch the 50 things that you see when you get a financial statement. But what I found was my directors and owners would look at that. They're educators, right? Occasionally we get a business person, but typically educators, and they gloss over and go, whatever. I don't even know what this means, much less what to do about it. So what we did was break this down into these 5 areas that if you manage well, will get you 95% of the way to financial health. Now, 2 of these you need to think about every single day. How full am I? How much am I spending on salaries? Every day, manage it. The other 3 you can think about a couple of times a year. What am I charging for tuition? How much am I discounting? What strategies can I employ around my rent or my mortgage? So if you really dig in deep, then 2 of these need to be worked on very frequently and very consistently, and that feels more manageable. So let's break them down. Okay, first of all, occupancy is a measure of how full you are, again, to licensed capacity. I say that with emphasis because I want you to use your actual ability to enroll and not your effective capacity. I'm not making fun of your decisions to operate differently than what licensing says you can do. What I want you to know is the effect of your decisions. There are times where you don't want to go to licensed capacity because you could add 1 more child in a classroom, but that means you have to add 1 more teacher and it makes no sense. Excuse me. Also, there are providers who choose to operate in a market where they operate at better than licensing standards, but that's a choice. You could make a different choice, right? So I want you to be armed with the knowledge of the choices you're making from a business perspective. And then maybe it's okay, maybe it's not. Maybe your financial picture doesn't allow you to do something anymore. Maybe you should move children around from one room to another room if your demand's bigger in another age group. What I want you to know is what the possibilities are and the effects of your decisions so you can then make better decisions. That's it. But what does occupancy mean? It means how you enroll to capacity in each classroom where it makes sense, that you focus on age groups that have the greatest potential for profit. And I know when I say this because they're largely being drawn out of our privately held schools in 3s and 4-year-olds. So that's at risk. Our best defense there is to be a team player, develop relationships with the people who might likely control that funding stream. Show them what you're doing. Show them how good it is, and don't wait till they get the funding stream. Who are they? They might be your local Head Start grantee. They might be the school district. They might be the entity that distributes the child development block grant program in your county or state. But start building relationships now, because that's where decisions are made when the money starts to flow. Don't be a threat, be a team player. You might consider them a threat. They also consider you a threat. Focus on full-time enrollments. Before I leave that, I will emphasis on infants and toddlers are that infants and toddlers are typically, in most places in the country, a loss leader, meaning at those ratios, most business owners lose money. However, there have been some shifts, and people do it because they want the siblings, right? But there's been a shift in tuition rates for infants and toddlers. Talk a little bit more about that in a minute. My last strategy is to, if you're not full, take part-time, all you want. Take whatever you get, right? And some people are masterful at pairing Tuesday and Thursday weeks with Monday, Wednesday, Friday weeks, and they charge more than 2/5 and 3/5 of the weekly tuition. I'll say that financially, that's a good model. It's hard on teachers. So, not judging, just pointing things out. If you're in a place where you're taking part-time enrollment, you might say things like, I can do this as long as I don't need this slot for a full-time child. When I do, I will invite you to go full-time. And I will understand if that's not a decision you make. I will need to enroll a full-time child in that slot. Because over time, you need to have your enrollment high for your cost model to work. So if you are not 70% full or greater as compared to licensed capacity, Don't go any farther than this pillar. Stay right here. Figure out where your openings are, put strategies in place to enroll in that age group. We don't have enough time to talk about those, but we've got some resources and I'm sure you can find others. But if your school is not sufficiently enrolled, you're never going to get to financial health, ever. You're not going to be able to afford the team. That means you get to breathe and think and strategize and create more for more people. You're not going to be able to pay your teachers what they're worth. You're just not going to thrive. So if you are not 70% full or greater, stay right here. So most schools will break even. Most schools, if they set their tuition rates correctly and their rent or mortgages in the right proportion to revenue, which I'll give you a benchmark for in just a minute, then most schools will break even at 50% full. That's a perfect world. At 70% full, most schools will be able to put about 15% on the bottom line. Now, I know people think it's a dirty word, bottom line, profit. What does that mean? That just means you have funds to reinvest in capital projects that your school needs. You need a new floor. You need some new playground equipment that's safer. You need a new bus to serve more children. You need a new curriculum. You can reinvest. That's what that means. But where your greatest financial health is when you move from 70 to 90% full. Let's think about that logically. So you're 70% full, your building costs are covered, your management and probably lead teachers are covered. Now maybe you need an assistant teacher or you need more supplies or food. But incrementally at that point, all the dollars flow to the bottom line. That's when you're in financial health. Then what happens? Then you can afford the things you need to do to create the quality you want to create. And where that lies is in the last one or two children in each classroom. And I know what happens when you come in with one more tour and the teacher goes, really, one more, and when I'm barely making it with this. I love education for teachers and for parents about what the cost model looks like. I'm in the process of writing a book at the moment that will be out later this year in very much detail about how to communicate with teachers and how to communicate with parents and resources you can use to help them understand what the cost model actually is. They have no idea. I didn't have any idea, even as an accountant parent. I would go in the classroom and count the little heads and multiply it by 8 and go, these people are making a fortune. And I found out really quickly what the truth was. But okay, so if you're not at least 70% full, stay right here, go back this afternoon and figure out where your openings are and what you're going to do about it. Second pillar, tuition rates. Okay, I tend to get a little soapboxy, preachy when I get here. So historically, in setting tuition rates, so we talked about that if staff costs have risen, and I see some people telling me theirs are 50%. I'm hearing it all across the country. So 30 to 50%. That means we have to increase tuition rates drastically, right? Just to make our model work. Because I'm going to say to you that at an occupancy of 70%, I want you to spend 45% of that on your staff salaries. What does that include? It does not include the owner unless they're also the director. You can get to that level when you're in a school of 80 capacity and greater. Under that, the owner will typically be the director, possibly even teach. Some schools are different if they don't pay as much rent or any rent. Some schools don't have to pay any rent. And they choose to use that towards staff salaries or lower tuition rates or both. Love it. Great model. But that's not reality for a lot of people. So I'll talk to those who have a full cost load in their school. So what I want to say about tuition rates is a lot. So let's see where to start. First of all, historically, I feel like the industry has lived in fear of increasing tuition rates, or has, out of respect for families, kept their tuition rates lower than it costs to actually operate the kind of quality that those families need, right? It's such a good reason for keeping your tuition rates lower. It's not sustainable. It doesn't even make sense. We would call our competitors and make a strategy to keep our tuition rate slightly lower, slightly higher, but we lived in fear of losing those families to the competition. And look, there are some markets where providers mainly compete on price. I want you to think of yourself as an operator that competes on quality. Now, I know some parent groups, even if they wanted to, have a limit to what they can pay. And if you're in a school has a significant amount of subsidy revenue, either you can't charge parents the difference between what subsidy pays and what it costs you to operate, or you choose not to because your competitors don't, and you're in a market where people have a limit to what they can pay, and you choose to discount that. I get it. That's so hard. There is some slightly good news coming out in a new federal mandate, which I'll say for a bit. But what I want you to start to think about with your tuition rates is what it costs you to operate today. Don't call your competitors. They're probably over there living in fear. They don't know what to do. Their salaries have gone up. They're probably drawing their savings out. They didn't even know what they were spending on staff until they quit putting their grant funding in their revenue line and then went, wait, what? I'm spending 70 or 80% on staff now? This is where your billing system, I know you guys are ProCare users, so this is where your ProCare billing system is critical. We're going to also talk about this in discounting. You need to be sure that your grant funding is way below the net income line. If someone else produces your financial statements, you need to tell them, you know, don't put that in my revenue line unless it keeps on going and I can depend on it forever. Then I can budget based on it. If it isn't, it's short term, it's not sustainable, and you can't raise rates 50% in one go. I hope you've been doing it since COVID. So historically, the industry would increase tuition rates 3 to 5% a year and once a year. It's kind of cost of living. Since COVID, providers have been in more the 8 to 12% range and sometimes more than once a year. I hope you've been doing that because there's a limit to what you can do now. The grant funding is gone. I've got a couple of strategies for you. But most people did historic tuition rate increases. Why? Because they knew the grant money was going away. And you don't want to gouge people. Also, you want to be there when this is over with. Who are you helping? If you go out of business and you can't pay people anything and your doors are closed and you're not even there to provide services, who are you helping at that point? No one. So I will say that in January of this year, we started hearing most of the larger companies say that parents were beginning to say, okay, we hear you. We're done with that though. You know, we're done with all these bigger increases. We kept stepping up. We know it's costing a lot more. We're in the business that does that too. But there was a little fatigue with tuition rate increases. So look out for that. I'll give you a strategy I really like, and I'll say some more as we go. I like a grandfathering strategy. So I'm going to introduce you to our framework model in just a minute, which you can use to figure out what you need to be charging to get your salaries and your rent in the right ratios. Once you do that, everything else is okay. You might have another percentage or two out of whack, but it's not going to take you down, right? Those are the two big ones, and I've got benchmarks on those. And then I'll give you a resource for it. But if you find out you need to go up $50 a week and you're afraid you will lose everybody, I will just say that When people say to me, I went up $50 a week, and I always say, how many people did you lose? Generally, the answer is none. Sometimes it's one or two. And I'm sorry about that. I really am. My heart breaks for people who have to make financial decisions. Like I said, I'm your advocate, and I want you to still be here. So think about grandfathering current families. Maybe you say to current families, look, I really need to go up $50 a week, but I so appreciate your loyalty. We're going to grandfather you at $20 increase a week. You will be our legacy families. Thank you so much. I get asked the question a lot about what if parents compare tuition rates? What if they do? You know, you can do whatever you want, really. But current families, you know, can explain, well, I'm a legacy family. You know, I've been here a long time and they're helping me out. Maybe you don't decrease tuition as the child ages up until they catch up. Now, this strategy will take you 2 or 3 years. It's better if you just know what you need to do and you do it knowing, and if you guys have a wait list, just look, you're not charging enough, okay? Don't tell me you got 100 on your wait list and you're barely making staff salaries. Then go up. We have huge demand in infant toddler groups right now, which is interesting because infants, the birth rate has declined since COVID. Truly, it has. But the increase is due to the fact that more people are working and more people are choosing center-based care. So more business owners have wait lists in infants and toddlers. And I mentioned that historically the industry has lost money on infants and toddlers. So now's the time. Now's the time to do that. So tuition rates, big hot topic. Okay, discounting. Now, another preachy. This is another thing that people don't realize the effect of what they're doing when they discount tuition. Why? Because in their billing system, they're charging the discounted tuition. So all they see is what they're charging the parent. You guys, it's critical in your billing system to charge the stated rate. Even if you grandfathered people, charge the new rate less the discount for legacy families. They're going to see it on their invoice every week. And they're going to go, whoa, okay, I forgot I was getting a $30 a week discount. But be sure you have the information. You can discount anything you want. But I can't tell you how many companies we do evaluation for that are in trouble. And we say, did you know you were discounting $180,000 a year? No, really? Yes, really? How many people could you hire? How many raises could you give? How, you know. So just have the information. You can decide to do anything you want. Just have the information. So here's some industry trends. First of all, don't mess with your staff discounts. We need to do as much for our staff right now as we can. An industry norm is managers get free childcare and teachers get half price childcare. That's kind of always been an industry norm. One strategy I love that 3 states have implemented and 15 more are in self-study about is to pay for the childcare of preschool teachers. Why is this so beautiful? Helps you recruit. Come work for me. Your children come free. It helps the teacher who's not paying the half. It helps you who's not discounting the half. So if you're involved in your state and with your state association or in driving legislation, be sure somebody knows about this model. It's beautiful. Okay, so don't mess with staff, right? It's not time for that. If you are giving away free or vacation days tomorrow, put a letter out and say you're going to stop doing that. That's ridiculous. Your expenses go on anyway. The industry went away from it 15 years ago. Stop doing that. Here's what you can do. Here's a good strategy. Hey, and communicate with your parents. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them about all the great things you're doing in your school. tell them about what the financial picture looks like. Hey, in order to meet rising demand, tell them salaries went up 50% since COVID. We need to go up $50 a week to try to support you guys. We're going to go up $25 a week, and we're going to eliminate free or vacation days. So the combination, I would feel better about that if you knew how much you were discounting, because sometimes that will get you farther than a bigger tuition rate increase. There are schools now eliminating multiple child in the family discounts. Subsidy discounts are difficult. I talked about that earlier, that in some states you cannot discount the difference in your stated rate and what the parent pays, but do it in your billing system, know what that's costing you. And some people choose to discount certain industries. Here's how I think about that. If IBM's next to you and you discount their employees 10%, but IBM doesn't do anything for you, they were going to come to you anyway. So go to IBM. Now, businesses are getting more pressure, and they will continue to invest in their employees' childcare. Go to IBM and say, hey, did you know I was discounting your employees 10%? Could you let parents know here? Could you send them over? And by the way, could you cut my grass? Do you have a maintenance person you could send over once a week, once a month? Do you get supplies at a better price? Could you donate something? What can they do for you? Otherwise, that's not helping. You can grandfather that out as well. Maybe keep current families at that discount and just stop doing it. But also charge it correctly in your billing system. Full stated rate minus industry discount. Because at the end of the year, I want you to know the effect of the discounting and other financial decisions you're doing. So those three things: how full you are, occupancy, what you're charging for tuition. There are other charges, but we won't get into those. They have some effect, but minorly. And how much you're discounting. Those three things work together to create your revenue stream. So have the right information, make sound decisions based on cost of care, don't live in fear. Okay, so I want to talk about the two cost components of the 5 pillars. And I would like to invite you guys to use our benchmarking app that's online and free. You can go to frameworkbyhinge.com. I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots in a minute. You can input your school's license capacity and your average tuition rate, which for most schools is about is the 3-year-old tuition rate. And all the expenses will populate to create a benchmark just for you. And what that says logically is the average financially healthy school, given my capacity and my tuition rate structure, would spend this amount in these categories. Then maybe you look at your staff costs and you say, whoa, I'm spending a lot more than that. Play around with the tuition rates and see what you have to go to make that benchmark normalize. Same thing with your rent. So when you go to frameworkbyhinge.com, in the upper right-hand corner, it says free assessment. There's also a paid version where you can access information and play a lot of what-if games with your discounts or your tuition rates, but the free assessment's great. And so use that to see, and every school's different. It's not perfect, right? So don't take it for like gospel. Oh gosh, I don't pay that much in rent, good. But do look at your staff cost percentage and your rent or mortgage percentage. Okay, so I used to say ridiculous things about staff costs, which included things like look at every 15 minutes or combine age groups. Still do that. This staff group can't wait to go home, so train them to know that when they get to a certain number of children in the classroom, that somebody can go home, and they can't wait. You say, can we go home? That's another COVID thing. Let's give credit. This employment base has so much better work-life balance than we ever did. They can't wait to go home. It makes a difference too, those little 15-minute increments. But mainly if you're having trouble with the cost percentage, your tuition rates are too low. So that's the go-to for me. If you're really out of whack, you're not charging the tuition you need to support your cost load. That's the problem, not how much you're spending. I will say there are a lot of new staff strategies, and we don't have enough time to get into that either. But we're never going to pay this employment group. I don't think we ever have, honestly, but definitely not this group. We're not going to pay them enough for salaries to be the reason they come. What they want is deep, meaningful, purposeful work and opportunity. So what you need to get good at is explaining to people the value in their work, appreciating them, and creating opportunity, which it usually comes from growth, which circles right back around to is your cost model in line, because you can't grow unless you're financially stable. So this is a screenshot of framework. The left-hand side will give you your benchmark. You will tell it what your occupancy is. The right-hand side will let you play around with the occupancy. So you can do things like, what if there's another COVID and we're half full? We're 50%. What does that look like? What if I got to 100%? What would that look like? And then you can make some plans based on that. Okay, and your facility costs are our second largest cost for most providers. And what I like is for rent to revenue, for a new or very updated building in an A market to be 15%, sometimes slightly higher. It's hard to go much over that. In some places, buildings are older and rent might be lower than 15%, but your repairs are going to be higher. In some places where people are depending on lower subsidy tuition and there's a ceiling for that, then you might have a rent that's lower. But that's typically it. Now, when I say to you, I want you to keep your facility in good shape, bright and shiny and new, that is attracting today's parent group. They want the facility to be safe and inviting and nice. They want your branding in place. They want you to have parent communication apps, which I know ProCare does a beautiful job of. And if you don't have the resources to do that and you lease your building, ask your landlord to do it. I'll give you an example. I'm a landlord. I don't want to operate like y'all do. I did that. That's a lot of work. So I'm now a landlord. My tenant called me at one point, said, I really need to update your building. I need $250,000. I want you to give it to me and I'll pay you more rent. And I was like, cool, glad. I want you to keep my building looking great. So I went to my bank. I said, hey, can I draw $250,000 more off my mortgage? Sure you can. Gave it to my tenant. They're paying me more rent. That covers the mortgage. Beautiful model. So ask your landlord. Tell them what you're doing. I want to be here and be your tenant for a long, long time. And that means I need to keep up. I don't want to be irrelevant when new competition comes in. Let's invest in this together. If you own your building, go to your bank. Ask your bank to increase your mortgage, let you pay a little bit more on the mortgage, or just make your term longer. So use other people's money for those things, but super important that you do that. Here's a screenshot of facility cost. Program costs real quickly, minor things, bid your supplier relationships. During COVID on food, a lot of providers started having families bring lunch. That's about 4%. Now, if you're on the food program, ignore the rest of what I'm gonna say about food because you cannot have families bring lunch. But if you can, then that's about 4 or 5% of your revenue stream that can be spent on salaries or whatever else you need. Marketing's getting less expensive, and in this high demand market, it's easy to think about not investing anything into marketing. Keep some PR marketing going. Here's the program cost section. On admin, use billing systems for efficiency. I know that they have fees associated with them, completely worth it though. Definitely don't put the people time and energy into running people down for their tuition. Love cameras in the classroom. I know all the things. We could sit here and debate that for 15 or 20 minutes about how licensing uses camera systems sometimes. Not sure I'm a fan always of having parents view, but that goes across the board too. Some schools love it, some schools not so much. But parent communication apps are a must. Program cost section. Growth opportunities. If you're in growth mode, acquire existing schools. Knock on the door of your competitors and build a relationship. Just say, hey, I'm John. I operate down the street. I see you doing good things. Say that whether you do or not. I'm in growth mode. I don't know where you are in the life of your company, but love for you to call me first. And if you catch them on the right day, that might be the day, or at least they'll remember it. Also, biz buy sell, BIZBUYSELL is the best place to go for local schools for sale. We don't use that. We don't publicly market. We go directly to our investors. But for local schools, that's your best source. Build a new school. There's some grant funds for expansion in new schools. We talked about partnering with other entities. I love public school and the after school in the public school. Consider providing the after school program on your public school campus. Love that model. You might think it'll cannibalize your own after school program. It won't. It'll enhance it. Love that model. Love to take some questions. So what you guys got? Leah, do you want me to just see what we have? You want to tee them up?
We got some good ones. You ready? Okay.
Let's do
it. And you've gone over this a little bit as well, but we are 93% full, but need to raise rates for families to meet our true cost per child. How do you recommend best to do this?
Yeah, such a good question, Jessica.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So look, at 90%, 93% full, just go up. Go up and knowing that, I'm guessing if you're 93% full, you also have a wait list, but even if you don't, all right, what I'm going to say sounds cold, but you heard me say I'm your advocate, so let me just go ahead and say it, that if you go up 10%, you lose 10% of your families, you're still better off because your cost just went down. And guess what? You're not going to lose 10%, and you're going to backfill that enrollment immediately. And I know that you guys are super nice, giving people, but that's just the reality of it. That's what I would want you to do at that level of occupancy, Jessica. You could use the grandfathering techniques, but if you're that full, I wouldn't do that. Also, like we said, consider your discounts. Can you combine a lesser increase and remove some discounts? That's also a good strategy.
Next question. Do you do in-person consults? My board is having, whoops, my screen moved. My board is having a hard time with me raising our rates. We need to raise our rates 25%, but they don't want to do that to the families. I think it may help to have a professional come in and review our financials and then speak to the board. Is that something you would do?
Thank you for that question. Really important. Perhaps is the answer to that. The in-person part is sometimes tricky. I will offer up a couple of things. First of all, use the Framework app to show your board what the cost model nationally looks like. That would be a good thing. So run it at your current rates and then run it at the proposed rates. Manipulate the occupancy to where you are and use that for data. If you need someone to like zoom into a meeting, probably someone on my team could pull that off. So reach out. We want to be everything. I mean, we want to support everybody, and to the extent we can, and we can do it well, we certainly will. So reach out, send us an email.
And where is the benchmarking tool found online?
It's called Framework. Yeah, thank you. It's called Framework by Hinge.com.
Okay.
You can find that online.
Another question. How do you advise nonprofits in these situations?
Yeah, you know, honestly, we have sold nonprofits, we've sold for-profits. I advise them exactly like I advise everyone else. The cost model is the cost model. If you're a nonprofit, you want to do good things. If you're a for-profit, you want to do good things. We all want to create amazing situations for children. We all want to reinvest. We all want to grow. I think the benchmark is exactly the same, and I think that you can use the same strategies.
Okay. Do you know the website for the school expansion grant you mentioned?
There is specific to each state, and
Okay.
it's specific to each county. So, you know, obviously Google, find out what your state has. This, you know, I know how difficult it is to get out of your school and be involved on your state level, but let me say this. Since the federal dollars ended in September, we're now depending on the states to help support childcare centers, and there's some beautiful models going on. But if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. So be at the table, find a way to step up, and be sure people know. We have to educate our legislators. I don't want to bash legislators, but also I do feel, because I wouldn't do that job. It's got to be a horrible job. But I do feel like a lot of them don't understand the dynamics of childcare. Maybe they've never had a personal childcare situation. Maybe they can't really connect with the needs of families right now. They probably certainly can't connect with the needs of providers who are doing good work. So it takes us all to provide an education and a connection to our industry. Invite them over, sit down for 10 or 15 minutes and have a cup of coffee and talk about what's going on in your school, and then have them read a book for some PR in a class. They love that. But relationship, all about their relationship.
Another question, as we continue to grow, where'd it go? We have found our credit card fees have become astronomical, over 150,000 across all of our sites. Any recommendations?
Well, I know certain types of fees are less expensive than others. Do you want to address that, Leah?
That is something that we are proud of at ProCare. We are among the lowest as far as fees and what you get for your money, and the services that we do provide, the safety and the security, your data, your finances. We can keep all that safe for you. If you want to do a demo with us, we can talk about some of our certifications that only we have as far as data and security, as well as how economical it is, as far as time savings, as far as the low fees that we do offer as well.
Great. Now, I'm not an expert, but I think that there's a difference in what the fees are for credit cards versus ACH. So look into that. Also, that's a lot, 150,000 a year. I feel like there's probably a way for you to manage that in a more cost-effective way. I will say that that is a good investment into those fees. The flip side is you have people costs and you have cash flow drains. So, but also I think there's probably a way for you to minimize that with a different type of automatic payment that's not credit cards. But I'll leave that to the experts. So I'm sure somebody on the ProCare team can help.
We can. All right, now we have another good question. Many public schools are offering pre-K 3 to 5 programs, and our enrollment for this age group has decreased. Is it wise to now focus on 2 to 3 age groups?
Yeah, tough one. I mean, that is tough. So we're going to see an escalation of more entities who want to serve 3 and 4 year olds, right? And it's hard to compete with free, right? That's really hard to compete with. So there is a parent group that prefers the quality of a privately held company over a public situation. And it's your job to be sure that it's special and high quality and to communicate that well. So there is a parent group who will pay you, even if it's free and available, if they believe that it's worth it. That's one thing. The second thing is that if we diminish our most stable revenue age groups, we have to be sure we're charging the correct tuition. You can focus on infants through twos, but it's going to mean that you take a very hard look at your tuition rate stream. Also consider after schoolers in combination with some of those. So after schoolers are the most profitable program, although the numbers are smaller because those tuitions, except in summer and holidays, those tuitions are smaller. So we just got to get creative about the way that we make decisions on which age groups to serve and how we price that.
All right, we're getting close to an hour, but this is a good one. Kathy, you mentioned briefly upcoming federal mandate about as far as subsidies. Can you explain that? And great presentation, Kathy.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. So let me just say that we just got verbal information on the details around this last week. So I say that as a qualifier because until I see it fully in writing, then we work with ECEC, which is our nation's largest lobbying group. And week before last now, I did a webinar. You can pull it from our website with the liaison to the states. So they're working heavily with the states now because that's where the work is being done. The federal government announced a mandate in February that states have 2 years to comply with related to subsidy tuition. So here's what's expected. The first thing that's expected is that parents will pay no more than 7% of their income for childcare. I asked a lot of questions about that because my first question is, well, who's going to eat that difference? Because it's not going to be the childcare providers. They're already doing enough. I'm being told that it will be paid by the Child Development Block Grant. So that's number one. Number two is that providers be paid on time, which means in advance. So there will be a lot of system improvements with states over the next 2 years. And the third thing is that the tuition will be paid based on enrollment and not attendance. So in some states, they're out one day, you don't get paid for it. In some states, they're out the whole week, you don't get paid for it. You won't have any more of that. You'll be paid based on enrollment and not when the child actually attends. So we're optimistic that those things, even though it'll take a while to fully implement, will make a big difference in the revenue cost load in schools that have, I'd say more than 25% subsidy. You get in that range and you really need some support in making that model work well.
All right, I think that should about do it. We have information on your screen right now on the slide for how to contact Kathy. Her email is right there, hingeadvisors.com. Also, please scan the QR code or go to procare.solutions/webinar/survey and fill out a short form. And we do want to say congratulations to Virginia Schrift. She won the Amazon gift card. So everybody except Virginia, please fill out this survey so you too have a chance to win. Kathy, thank you so much for joining. That was really great information. We hope that you all found it useful as well. And we here at ProCare Solutions do want to say thank you to everyone in ECE, everyone who's doing childcare, for the vital work you do every day. I'm going to say it from a personal thank you. My youngest is in preschool in an ECE program, and it means a lot to us working parents. So thank you for joining us, and please come back. Keep an eye out for upcoming webinars as well, where we'll have more great information for you. Goodbye, everyone.